Hi guys, Mimi G here. Welcome to my sewing room. One of the things that I get asked a lot about is, can you do a tour of your sewing room? Now, this is one of the big selling points of this house when we found this house, because this space is completely sort of separate from the rest of the house. And it's really convenient for us because we can have sort of everything out as we need it and not have to worry about putting anything away. And it also gives us a little bit of privacy when the kids are home or when we're trying to work on something. Having a sewing space at home is the best thing ever. And having a space this size is, as you can imagine, amazing because both me and hubby sew out of this space. So let me show you around. Let me show you my sewing space. Now this obviously is my favorite place in the entire sewing room because it's where my machines are. So I sew on a Babylock Destiny, which I love this machine. I can do anything on this thing. It also has an embroidery unit that I can attach to it and do all sorts of things. We also work on Babylock Sergers. So this is the Triumph. Both me and Babe both work on Babylock Triumphs, and then he has my hand-me-down Crescendo Babylock that I gave him, but I'll let him do a video and talk about his space. This is sort of like where I put all of the little things that sort of make me happy when I sew, like this little painting here that my friend did for me. My friend Christina Tudor is a watercolorist, and she made this for my birthday, and I love it, so I like to look at it when I'm sewing. And then the shelf over where the window is just a bunch of other little things that I've sort of picked up along the way. And of course, where all my threads are. And then this little corner is where I sort of hang a lot of little things that I found, like these little McCall vintage notebooks are adorable. I won't write in them, but they're really cool to look at. And then other things like pictures of my kids that I also hang. Then usually on my table, I have my water. This thing is attached to me all day long. I always have water. And then if you notice, I have an iPad on my sewing table. This is like my TV screen. So I know a lot of people listen to music when they sew or watch TV. I like to watch TV, or Netflix or Hulu or whatever. So I always have my iPad on here so that I can watch as I sew. More like listen and sew. And then here, this little cabinet I bought a long time ago. It reminded me of my friend Tico and me, so we're two little foxes. It's a long story, but anyway, this reminds me of her, so I keep it on here. And then in here I have my sewing labels, which of course I add to everything that I make, and other tools and things that I keep handy. And then I have my drawers. So the drawers that sit directly next to my sewing machine are probably the most important because I reach for them all the time. So in the first drawer, I have things like my seam ripper, which you use a lot. Point turners, little scissors that I might need. I have all of this really cute sort of Simplicity vintage stuff that I got at Joann. Some of them Simplicity sent to me, so thank you for that. I have this little tin box where I keep like hooks and eyes and things like that. I also obviously have a lot of needles for everything that I need. So I have denim needles, leather needles, jersey needles, Microtex needles, all kinds of needles, okay? And then oddly enough, I have Band-Aids. But they are sewing Band-Aids, right? They have little sewing machines and tape measures on them, but you'd be amazed how often I cut myself. I cut myself all the time. I cut myself cooking, I cut myself sewing. I'm always cutting myself. Like, even when I'm like doing something in the kitchen, hubby is like, put the knife down, you're gonna cut yourself, because I'm always bleeding somehow. And then my other drawers are like my buttons. This is like my favorite box of buttons. This is where I keep all of my pretty buttons. So I have like all the ones that I usually find that are super like odd or, I don't know, different. They're like all the shiny, pretty stuff that I like to look at is all in this sort of little box that I got. And they're usually really interesting. So sometimes I'll buy buttons just based on, interest or how different they are. And then I sort of just hold on to them because at some point I'm going to find a project that I love that's going to match up to the buttons that I bought. And then this last bottom one, there's more buttons in here. And then there's just like zippers, like tons and tons of zippers. So a whole drawer full of invisible zippers, regular zippers, all the kind of zippers that you need. So it's this really cute little glass jar that I use. And then whenever I'm serging something, I could just grab all the clippings and then I put them in here. It just keeps things nice and tidy. I am, if you can't tell already by looking at my sewing space, a clean freak. I get a bit obsessive about having a clean sewing room. So before I start a project, it has to be clean, just like in your kitchen. You can't start to cook unless your kitchen is clean. Same in my sewing space. The husband is a little different because he's a little messy, but he's a messy sewer. All right, let's go to my pressing station. Okay, this is where I do all my pressing, right? So there's a bunch of little things, like I have rulers on this wall because I'm constantly reaching for them. They're close to my cutting table. There's patterns hanging all around all the time because we're always working on something. This is actually a really handy iron. You guys saw, I think I might have done a blog post about it, but it's a wireless, a cordless, I should say, cordless iron, which is actually really handy to have. I really like having it, but I have to say that it doesn't stay hot as long as I need it to. So I just put a little call into my folks at Oliso to send me some new Oliso irons. One other thing I really wanted to show you guys, honestly, about this corner is this is where I have things like my pins and my pattern weights. You guys know that I use just general washers from the home improvement store. Pins and things like that. Obviously my ironing board. But I always keep this near me. So this was a gift from my aunt. It's actually kind of creepy because it plays a really creepy song. But I really like it. It's really special to me. It reminds me of like a horror movie. But it's so cute. And it was a present, right? So I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Titi Jolie. I love it. Oh, it won't shut up now. Okay, and then we have obviously my pressing tools. So I have my hams, my sleeve rolls, and all of that. This is a board where I jot down a bunch of things that I need to remember to do. Generally, I forget to write the things down on the board. So that doesn't work too well, but it's there. And then we have, this is this bathroom / storage room. So I will say that having a bathroom in this room is super helpful because I don't have to run upstairs to use the restroom. I can just go in here, but we mostly use it for storage, boxes, supplies, tools, all kinds of things sort of just end up in there. And then behind me is my cabinet of fabric, one of them anyway. This is where I keep most of my fabric. So I did do a huge fabric purge right before we moved to this house. I literally called my friends and was like, if you want this fabric, come get it. Because I've sort of been trying anyway to just buy fabric as I need it for projects. So where before I would generally just go and buy a bunch of fabric because it was pretty and I loved it, I now try to limit that as much as possible, even though I do have a problem, and only buy if I know specifically what I'm going to be using it for. So usually I have a list of projects that I need to get done, and so then I'll buy based on that. But I have sort of kept a stash of fabrics. So this is my current stash. So I have just a bunch of different fabrics that I've sort of have collected over time. These are the ones that I didn't want to part with when I did my huge purge. It's a mix of sort of like wovens and knits and wools and all kinds of things. And then the baskets on top are full of, this is like fusible interfacings. This is like organza, chiffons, things that I usually use for like inner linings or linings are in here. And then this is our rabbit. This is what we use to cut holes into our patterns to hang them. And then just a bunch of little quilting fabrics that I'm going to be using actually pretty soon because I'm going to be making my own oven mitts and things like that. So I'm super excited about that. And then I have a rolly cart of fabric. So I started to run out of fabric space. So I actually have a little rolly cart that I use. And this is mostly just like really fine fabrics. It's either like silks, chiffons, short prints that I have where I don't have a whole lot of yardage of it, but I keep handy. This is actually the husband's denim that he just bought. And then I have one more cabinet that I use, or actually shelves of fabric that I'll show you in just a second. But let's go look at my cabinet of all kinds of things. So this is my favorite storage cabinet. This is an IKEA piece, along with most of what is in here actually. The tables that we use to sew on, those are IKEA tabletops with adjustable legs. And even our cutting table, which you'll see in a second, is an IKEA kitchen countertop with adjustable legs. So this is really where I keep a bunch of stuff. So I have a lot of sewing books. Most of them are actually still in boxes in the garage, but these are the ones that I use the most. I keep them super handy. It's usually just like pattern making books or fitting books that I keep handy at all times. And then I have just like patterns that I'm currently working on. So these are the ones that I want to tackle in the near future. Hopefully I can get to them soon. I keep them out so that I can remind myself. Then I have more books. And then this is where I keep all of sort of our notions and tools and things like that. So for example, I have a lot of elastics here. I have a lot of scissors, a lot of rotary cutters in here. I have just a couple, just one or two of bias binding that I have always handy. And then just extra stuff, baskets full of craft things or glues and leather scraps and all kinds of things. Like I have a whole ton of just stuff. Most important though on this cabinet are my pattern books. So I did a video, it's already on my YouTube channel, on how I store my patterns. So people ask me that all the time. So you guys know I buy a lot of patterns. I would venture to say I have anywhere from at least 2,000 patterns, like easy. And all of those boxes are in my garage. So I store them alphabetically and then numerically. So if it's either by McCall, Simplicity, Vogue, or whatever other pattern company it is, and then by the number, so that then I can just go and pull the box that I'm looking for. But there's a whole video on how I do my patterns. I'll link it in the description box if you guys want to watch it. But that's basically what these are. These are all pattern books. They're all by like wardrobe, bottoms, tops, dresses, and I'll show you inside what they look like. So I put all of my pattern envelopes in these binders, and you guys can see this, like I said, in full detail in that video. But basically, I grabbed the pattern itself and the instructions. I put it in a manila envelope. I label it with the name and the pattern company and the number, and then that goes filed in the boxes that are in the garage. So whenever I need to look for something, I just pull out one of my catalogs and I flip through it. I'm like, oh, I really like this pattern, Vogue 1322. And then I go into my garage, pull out the box with the label, and then find the pattern, which is in my envelopes. And there's more fabric. So I said I ran out of space. I have these shelves that I got. These are just from Target, I think. And I just put them on top of this dresser, which is also an IKEA dresser that came unfinished. And we just painted it white a long time ago and bought new knobs for it. I sort of keep all of the fabric that I plan to use like now, like currently projects that I need to work on or that are coming up soon are sort of all up here. And then as the seasons change, I take all of my summer fabrics and I move them to another place in the house. In the hallway, I have all of these sort of cabinets that are meant for linens. Instead, I use them to have all of my summer fabrics or fabrics that I know I'm not going to use anytime soon in there. So I told you guys I have a lot of fabric. And this is after getting rid of like, I don't know, 6 or 7 bags of fabric. But these are all things that I've purchased recently that I plan on using. And then sort of that cabinet that you saw, that gets used sort of on a frequent basis. And then this cabinet holds even more patterns. So this cabinet basically holds patterns that I have not yet indexed, meaning I haven't created a new catalog for them, so I don't have a binder. But generally what happens when I have time is either me or my assistant April will come in and she'll grab the patterns, take them out of the envelopes, put them in a binder, label everything, and then she will file these away into boxes, and those go into the garage. So that's what is in all of these. And then there is one little drawer here of the hubby's fabrics. So he doesn't hoard fabric the way that I do. Generally, when we find something that we both like, we'll just buy like 5 or 6 yards of it and then we split it. But he does have a little bit of a fabric stash in these drawers down here. And then besides that, like I said, it's just the hubby's sort of area. He has his little ironing space and then his machines on the other side of the table. And then the best feature of this entire sewing room for both of us is our cutting tables. Here are our cutting tables. Listen, cutting tables are like the most important thing next to your sewing machine and your iron. Because when I first started sewing many, many moons ago, I used to cut on my bed, I used to cut on my carpet, I used to cut on the kitchen table, I used to cut in all kinds of places. I know y'all can relate. So having cutting tables this size is like, oh my God, sewing gold, okay? When we moved our sewing space in here, we knew that we had a significant amount of space to put in really big cutting tables. So what we did is we went to IKEA and we looked for the biggest kitchen countertops we could find that were made out of butcher's block. And these were perfect. I mean, I can lay several pattern pieces on these tables. And unless both of us are sewing at the same time, we can generally just use all of it for ourselves. But when we're both in here working, this side of the table is his, and then this side of the table is mine. And as you can imagine, this is so much space, which just makes sewing and cutting even easier. But the best part about it is that we were able to get adjustable legs for the tables so that we can bring them up as high as we wanted to. The one thing you'd want to avoid when you're cutting so much is having to bend down. So, which, you know, if you're cutting on your kitchen table, it's not counter height, right? So it can cause some back problems if you're constantly sort of leaning over to cut. These, I literally can stand up. It's right where it needs to be. I don't have to bend at all. And then under the table, I keep a bar stool because, like I said, sometimes I'm drawing or writing or drafting patterns and I get tired, so I can sit. Also, we have our trash cans that sit underneath our tables because if you have a lot of scraps, a lot of fabric, a lot of paper. And then, of course, Buttons. When we're down here, Buttons is down here. She sleeps in her little dog bed and she will chill with us the entire day down here. It's probably one of her favorite places in the house also because it's probably the coolest room. So when it gets really high in the 90s, she comes down here to hang out. So this is, as you can imagine, my favorite place in the entire house. This and the kitchen. That's where I spend most of my time. And I cannot end this video without talking about the light in this room. So the hubby installed our fluorescent lighting, which is so critical, not just because we film down here when we do our tutorials and YouTube videos and things like that, but also when we're sewing. We want really bright white light. We don't like yellow light when we're sewing or trying to film. So he went and got these fluorescent lights from Home Depot and installed them for us, and they are perfection. So thanks, hubby. Let's see, aside from that, I mean, this is it. This is where we sew. This is where we create. It's like, you know, you can't have a house if you're a seamstress or a sewer for hobby and like not have a space that's just for you, even if it's just a little corner in your house or a little space in your kitchen that you kind of take out and put away, which I did for years. I would take stuff out, lay it on my kitchen table, I would sew and create and then sort of just put everything back. Whatever your space is, Make sure that it's comfortable for you, that you enjoy it, and that it becomes your happy place, right? Because that's why we do this. This is our happy place. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. If you have questions about anything in our sewing space, leave it in the comment section below. I'll try to answer as many of them as I possibly can. Thanks for joining me on the tour. Until next time, peace.